why you're involved in the Star Wars universe. You're not
I
going to
was
tell
there
me.
for celebration. I was
Okay.
there. Yeah, I was there. It's a huge convention for Star Wars fans to get together.
You also worked on Burka Avenger.
I did. I loved Burka Avengers. I would say even more than Ms.Marvel, that is the highlight of my career that I choose to stick with because she was made in Pakistan. So yes, narrative game design is a huge monster. I know the best art directors who are not even metric pass. Khaya! I'm like, and like, you know how your brain just dies or flatline kar jati hai? I just had a brain freeze. I was 15 years old. Yes, I didn't have my ID card then. I was 15 years old and I got hired to as the writer for that gig. The company was called Numerical Studios. So I'm working at Free Range Games right now. It is a company in San Francisco.
Okay.
And it's a video game development company. They're working on a bunch of projects. So I'm very happy about that I have my name in the credits on a Lord of the Rings game. It is like, yay, check mark.
Assalamu alaikum everyone and welcome to another episode of How Does It Work, a podcast by Pro Pakistani. We have a very interesting guest today. Khaya Ahmed is a narrative game designer. एक तो I have no idea what that means. और आपसे हम ये समझने की कोशिश करेंगे. But firstly, thank you for so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much. So yes, narrative game design is a huge monster. There's a lot of things that go into narrative game design. Like, I'm going to ask you a question first. Do you like games?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like a big gamer, but yes, I do play video games.
What about the game? Like, what hooks you into a game?
Yeah, I was thinking about this, like different things. Depends on the game, right? Like, I'm a very competitive person, so I play a lot of games where I can beat someone. So it has to be like multiplayer somehow. But I don't know. I mean, I was reading this thing once about Fortnite, right? And how because it's colorful. Because when I first saw Fortnite, I was like, खेलता नहीं हूँ, लेकिन मेरे दोस्त सारे खेलते हैं and everyone plays it, right? And I saw it and I was like, yeah, this looks so weird. क्योंकि इतनी well lit और इस तरह की, you know, I'm used to Call of Duty or एक darkness.
The gritty stuff. Yes.
हाँ, और एकदम से you're watching this childish looking thing. And then I was like, I guess that's why it works, right? Because it's easy on the eye, लंबा चल सकता है. So I have no idea. I mean, why games work and why they don't work.
So 9 times out of 10 when I ask this question, people are like, yeah, when I shoot the guy, or what like the taunts that I can do when I'm shooting, the dialogue, the fact that I have something to look forward to, like the story.
Yeah.
Especially like when I ask Tekken players this, I'm like, yeah, what's your favorite? Like you mentioned competitive stuff, Tekken players, Street Fighter players, and King of Fighters. And even Mortal Kombat, I asked them, like, you know, what's your favorite part? Besides, like, you know, getting to beat people up. They're like, yeah, वो जो taunts नहीं करते, वो बहुत fit होते हैं. And I love कि वो, you know, वो एक story होती है, you know, characters का वो, you find out more about them as you fight different characters. कि वो Jin and his father have a feud. ये सब, that backstory, unraveling that as you progress the game. That's what my job is, basically, to kind of layer in those elements of, like, as you progress through the game, how does the narrative reinforce the gameplay? How does the narrative reinforce those moments so that when you're shooting a gun and the guy says something like, from something as small as I'm out of ammo to something as big as, yo, mama so fat, you know, that just, us tarah ki cheezein, those are what a narrative game designer does. They look at the gameplay and they're like, okay, how do we wrap a narrative wrapper onto this and make it the perfect sweet candy?
And वैसे तो I have to ask you about you know, your career and all of that, and I'll start with that, but I want to come back to this because I do have a lot of questions as to how does one get this job, because it sounds like a lot of fun.
It is very fun.
And but I don't know if do you study for that? How do you sort of get into that? Like, before we get into that, let's go into your career and start with a story that I already know, but I want you to tell me on air. Tell me about Ms.Marvel. What happened? How did you get involved with that project? And, you know.
इतने साल हो गए हैं. It's been so many years. I think about it, like, it feels like it's just yesterday, but, you know, it's been like more than 7 years now since it happened. So basically, before she's a household name now. I can't even like say कि किसी को पता नहीं है इसके बारे में, which is again so jarring to me even now. But, you know, back when the creative team was making it, I was on Tumblr. It's this microblogging website. और मैं उससे बैठ के fan fiction लिखती थी. And, I used to read a lot of Avengers fan fiction. I grew up as I was a huge nerd, still am. But I used to read a lot of fan fiction, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, Avengers, the big three kind of stuff. So my fan fiction kind of got a bit popular online. And one of the creators, comic creators, name is Matt Fraction, he kind of approached me and was like, yeah, I know stuff that you've written. Can I borrow some of this?
Wow.
मैंने कहा भाई क्या?
मतलब Tumblr पे just reached out to you.
Randomly, because again, all of these creators are on Tumblr. They're on Twitter now. Like comic creators are very chill. They're very the chillest people you'll ever meet. And he approached me. He's like, I like this idea that you've done with Hawkeye. Can I borrow some of this? I was like, no, just take it all. But
wait, so when they reach out to you, do they? So he just says, "कि यार मुझे fit लगा है, and I'm going to take this and put it into an actual comic book."
Do you mind if I there was this one small thing. It was so funny. It was like the fact that he, Hawkeye, was just like, one of his things was like, oh man, my life sucks kind of thing. He was very like sarcastic. He was very like, he used to beat himself up a lot. And he liked that idea. He's like, can I take a bit of this? And this one line, I want to use it, but I can't use it without asking you for permission first.
Okay.
I was like, yeah, man, take it. Just take it all.
And at this point, you weren't working with them, but they just...
No, he just randomly messaged me liking my stuff because someone had brought it to his attention. And he's like, hey, my wife, she's working on Captain Marvel. And they're introducing a new character, kind of like a successor to Captain Marvel. And she's going to be Muslim Pakistani character. And, would you be interested in kind of taking a look at her? Because, I feel like I get a lot of similar vibes from her that I'm getting from you, speaking to you now and stuff. It's like, sure. So he introduced me to the creative team. And I got to talking to them, and they showed me, after signing the NDA and stuff, they showed me Kamala. And Kamala was great when she was, in the beginning processes, but she wasn't there. They're like, and they recognized that. They're like, she's not...
What was not there about her?
She was a very Americanized Pakistani. She didn't have that brownness, that desi ghee, the gulab jamun. She didn't have that in yet. And... They showed it to me, and I'm like, this is great. I have some ideas. And they're like, what are the ideas? I'm like, well, let's maybe get rid of the scarf. Let's give her, a cool little dupatta.
She used to wear a scarf originally. Achha, take it.
I was like, and they're like, yaar, ye bachi. Then they scrapped her. I remember they scrapped her. They're like, they redrew her, and it was me. And I'm like, what are you doing? They're like, she looks exactly, like, we want her to look like you now. Because we see Kamala in you. Her name wasn't even Kamala then.
What was her name then?
I don't even remember what her name was, but her name... This became a joke. I'm not even sure if it's true or not. What the mazak raha tha, like Khaya plus Malala equals Kamala.
Wow. That's how they came up. Well, maybe.
I'm pretty sure that's not it. They just did it to troll the little girl on Skype. Ke, dekho, humne naam banaya hai. But I was the baby of the group, and they treated me very well. And, I was a huge part of the creative process with Willow. Willow herself was a convert, the lead creative person on this. And usne ye bola mujhe ki we want her to be as authentic as possible. We want your experiences, because I was born in America. We came back to Pakistan and stuff, but, I had that duality experience, and just that idea of, like, my parents also spent a lot of time. There's just that navigating those experiences in Pakistan vis-a-vis America and stuff like that. Like, the idea of putting in fan fiction, the idea of, like, how parents respond to a character in a, in a comic book that writes fan fiction. Is a brown person like a desi mom supportive of her daughter writing fan fiction instead of paying attention to studies? Just those kind of elements they fuse those in. They're like, yeah, we loved your experiences. Tell us more about your family. I told them about my Taya. He became the brother. It's like a teasing, like Kamala's best friend based off my cousin who is my best friend. Just that idea of her wearing the scarf. Even in the show, just jab unhone adapt kiya usko, that conversation that they have where she talks about herself wearing the scarf and I wear it in America and I know I might get hate crimed for it, but this is part of my identity. This is who I am. That's how my cousin always thought about it as well. And it's just,
how long was this process of you guys creating Well, you essentially, but
Not me. I can't take any credit for it. It's like when ideas, they're like, this is nice. Let's keep it. You know, like they had the final say.
You're sort of like coloring in the
I can't
desi
take,
bits.
Exactly. I can't take full credit at all. I would take like 10% of the credit, honestly. It was such a beautiful team. And that's because we had so much creative freedom. I think I need to point that out. There was a lot of creative freedom initially in the process because not a lot of creatives thought I was going to succeed. Because, you know, no one, even now when I speak to them, none of us thought that she would become who she is now. Like this flag holder person, you know, like this. She's very well recognized. She's in games. She's in comic books now. She has, you know, she's in a movie. She has her own show. We didn't expect any of this. We didn't expect the reception. We thought that ये बस बहुत obscure सी character होगी जो some people would know about her. We didn't expect her to explode the way she did.
And what are your thoughts on the show? Did you like the show?
I loved it. I had
how accurate, like, to what your original imaginings were? How accurate is it?
I like that they took a lot of stuff from the comics, like the part in the mosque when she's, you know, the whole imam situation. They borrowed a lot of that. The idea that the shoes get stolen from the mosque. I love that they put that in. I love that they brought in Desi musicians. I love that we get to hear you know, Desi music by Pakistani artists. They made an effort, which I really appreciate. They brought in artists like Shazil to do the artwork. I know Maha, another artist that I know and love, she did some of the artwork for it as well. Obviously Shameen was a part of it. So, you know, they had Pakistani talent come in, which I love. And that was the whole point of Kamala. We wanted to give an avenue to Desi artists to have their platform. And they did through Ms.Marvel's TV show, which I was very, very happy about.
And it's interesting you mentioned Shameen as well because she's working on Star Wars. Are you working on Star Wars?
I can neither confirm or deny. I was there, by the way, when they announced it, Celebration Pay. I was in the stage. Well, I was in like the back rows. Me and my husband, my son, we were part of Celebration. We went there and we got, through lucky draw, we got to be a part of that stage.
Wow.
And we were there when they announced the whole new lineup. I have pictures where I'm like, oh my God, it's Shermeen. And I'm screaming. At the
Did
top
you
of my
know
lungs.
from before? Do you have any idea?
I didn't. Me and Shersha and my husband were just looking at each other like, oh, it's Shermeen. She's on stage. And I'm waving and like I'm going crazy because Topi bhi pehni hui Chitrali. I'm like, hey, that's my girl. You know, like it was nice.
But it's amazing because, like, you know, we somehow gaming, science fiction, you would imagine it's a million miles away from Pakistan and our issues, and you know, so it's so fascinating that we've Pakistani women like yourself are carving a niche in such a, you know, different industry to where our daily problems might lie, right? So
it is escapism in a way, right? Like it is escapism, it is representation. One thing that I try to do, and this is like, it's kind of like a promise to myself internally, that I take a project where I can pepper in those Desi elements, you know, whether it's a game, whether it's a comic, whether it's a TV show. I always, my one thing for accepting a project is, can I put Desi stuff in here? Because it's like, if I can't, if my voice or my personality cannot be heard in this project, then I don't think you guys need me really. So I try my best. That's something I strive to do.
Yeah, and then it's more authentic, right? Because it's real and it's coming from you.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. Acha, tell me the story again. Of course, I've heard this one, but of when you met Stan Lee.
Oh, that was a crazy story. The way that we were wrapping up Ms.Marvel, like we had wrapped it up. You know, she had launched. So just to give you some background, all of this work that I've done, I never had to leave the country for it. I was, you know, Skype and bed ke kaam kar rahi hoti thi. I was in my room on my laptop with my shoddy internet connection, basically. Laptop bhi ghisa pita hua Toshiba tha. So very good laptop. Microsoft Word or Google Docs chalata tha, and that is it.
और घर वालों को इस टाइम लाइक आपने बात की ना कि वो मिस मार्वल अपने घर वालों को आइडिया था कि
not until she was launched.
Because you were really young, right? How old were you?
I was 19, 20, I think. I was very young.
And घर वालों को पता था कि you're...
घर वालों को पता चला जब launch हुई. I was like, I have to tell you something, guys.
So उनको उससे पहले क्या लग रहा था कि तुम बस कमरे में बैठ के...
They're like, ये बच्ची fan fiction लिख रही है. I told them I had a job. Like, I can't tell you where it is. I can't tell you what it is. But...
And they were chill with that.
Like, हाँ यार, करो जो करना. They were very supportive. They've always been super supportive of my career. You know, my dad is a creative person. My mom is a very creative person. So they like the fact. And they're the ones who introduced me to geek culture. My parents introduced me to
Acha.
Star Wars. They introduced me to heavy metal. So
Nice.
I'm kind of like their living legacy
Wow.
in a way. Huh?
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So-
Acha, so they were also like into the world of creative.
Yeah. So, they were like somebody who, they wanted me to do what I wanted to do. And I it was not a very smooth path. Bade beach mein, hurdles. I changed careers. I dropped out of university. At one point, I was like, मैंने ये नहीं करना, मैंने software engineer नहीं बनना, मैंने ये नहीं करना, मैंने वो नहीं करना.
Do you think in the creative world, sorry, we're directing, we have to go back to Stanley, lekin, since you brought it up, do you think in the creative world, it doesn't matter going to university? Is it different to, now you work at a pretty senior level in multiple different industries actually even. मतलब क्या फ़र्क पड़ता है इस इंडस्ट्री में? Because sometimes I think, because we're also in a similar industry, आपकी bachelor's degree.
I'm gonna make a lot of parents angry by saying this because like गंदी बातें कर रही है, हमारे बच्चों को बर्बाद कर रही है, but it doesn't. If you're creative, I know the best art directors who are not even metric pass or art directors, and it when you have talent in a creative industry, whether it's art, whether it's yeah, there are some fields, yes, in the creative industry. Like I feel like if you want to be a developer, you need to have basic
course.
knowledge of C++. Vis-a-vis, a lot of people are self-taught in coding as well. So, it's a very slippery rope. But in terms of writing, like, theek hai, I studied, I went to school, I learned how to read and write. But that talent I learned online. I, read books a lot. I saw what worked in movies, what didn't work, what I liked, what I didn't like. I taught myself. And I think when you're a creative person, and especially in art and design even, sometimes you don't need a degree to kind of justify that. Maybe you can have a degree. Like I know a lot of people who have taken different routes. A degree can kind of hone it and bring it out if you're a bit, अगर आप थोड़ा सा दबे हुए हो, आपकी true personality को निकाल सकता है. But like 8 times out of 10, it's not really needed. Sorry, guys.
So back to Stanley.
Yes, Stanley. So rap party ho rahi thi online. They had put me on a screen there. Chota sa kamra tha. The core team was celebrating because we had done the impossible. We had launched her, and we were waiting for the true sale numbers to kind of come in and stuff. But we were just celebrating, having a moment. And I remember because raat ka waqt tha, it was morning there, it was night at where I was in Pakistan, and I was in my pajamas. And I was apni team thi. I'm like, हाँ यार ठीक है, chill scene. They're like, oh, I want to introduce you to someone. I was like, oh, koi hoga. They're probably gonna like show me someone, with a koi comic wala phir raha hoga, cool sa banda. I was like, okay, cool. And all of a sudden I hear that voice which I've heard since bachpan, right? Like, Khaya. I'm like, oh. And like, how your brain just dies or flatline kar jati hai. I just had a brain freeze, and I'm just like looking at the screen like this. Like, what is happening? And I can't speak. I am completely starstruck. And he goes like, oh, you look just like her. Like, he just is like, congratulations. It's such a great project. I loved reading her. And I'm just like, by that time I'm just crying. Just like ugly crying. Like, I remember my parents were sleeping. I'm just like, I love you, Stanley. like sobbing. And everyone's laughing. And I'm just like, can you just say one thing to me? And he's like, what? And I'm like, can you just say Excelsior? And he laughs and he goes, Excelsior. And I start crying even more. It's the worst. Like, I think back on it, it's so embarrassing. Like, I asked...
Someone should have screen recorded that, though. We needed the actual footage because that would have been hilarious.
I had, like, 0 questions to ask. I didn't ask him anything. I just cried and wept at the screen. As he was singing praises of the thing that I had helped on.
But that's pretty crazy. Have you met anyone else from the sort of Marvel universe in the years after that?
I have met people in the Star Wars universe.
Oh, really? Like who?
Yes, I have met Anakin Skywalker.
Oh, wow.
And I have met Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Wait. Which Anakin and which Obi-Wan?
So Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
not
so
Alec. Not those. Those are...
But they're probably not alive.
Yeah, they're not alive.
I don't know. So I shouldn't say that. But I don't think Obi-Wan is alive.
No, Alec Guinness died way, way back.
Yeah. So I want to ask why you're involved in the Star Wars universe, but you're not
I
going to
was
tell
there
me.
for celebration. I was
Okay.
there. Yeah, I was there. It's a huge convention for Star Wars fans to get together. They announced stuff there, and my husband and my son, we dressed up as Padme, Anakin, and Luke, and we're
Nice.
like, "Chalo yaar, let's there were photo shoots वगैरह होते हैं, and you can meet and greet with the actors." So we just decided to go and meet them. We booked a ticket, and we saw them. We met them. My It's so crazy now that I think about it. But Ewan McGregor looked at my son, who was dressed up as Luke, and he went, "Hello there." And I wept almost again. I was like, oh my God, he said hello there to my son. And even Anakin, Hayden Christensen, he looked at my son Isa, and he's like, oh my God, your kid's so adorable. And the whole time they're just like looking at each other, and the photographer's like, guys, will you take a picture? There are people waiting. He's like, oh, this kid is too cute.
That's
Yes.
pretty crazy.
It is pretty crazy.
Yeah, so you said that you were like a Marvel fan growing up, all of that. Do you think the peak of Marvel has sort of happened, and with Endgame and all of that, or is this like a reboot, sort of work phase? Because sometimes I think, we've seen so many good superhero movies, and also so many
The superhero fatigue, yeah. I know
yeah,
what
it's
you're
almost
talking about.
fatigued
Yeah.
now, where I'm like, I can't, I don't want to watch this anymore. But I mean, that may be me, and I'm not a big comic book fan. Do you see that as the peak, or will we?
I feel like it was lightning in a bottle because it had never been done before. It was setting up this huge, this universe.
Payoff,
There was a payoff, right? Like even now when I watch, like lagi hoti hai, TV pe, and I catch like a glimpse of like the Iron Man suit up scene or the Cap suit up scene. I'm like, oh man, that's so cool. And I feel like, and they were taking risks back then. Studio was taking risks. They were banking on unknown actors, unknown stories. Now that you think about it, they're so well known. But Robert Downey Jr. was not a well known, like he wasn't a bankable actor.
100%.
Chris Hemsworth wasn't a bankable actor. Chris Evans, these were people who were relatively unknown. There were a lot of risks to be taken. Some of them didn't pay off. Some of them paid off really well. So I feel like now, as because it's become such a $1 billion industry. And even I believe they even took out a statement recently where they're like, we don't want to take risks because of the recent failures. I feel like that shoehorns your creatives into a really bad box, and then it affects your end product. And we've seen this with the DC universe as well.
I was going to say, isn't that what happened with DC?
When you're afraid to take risks, you are afraid to push your creative team out of their comfort zone. And that results in a very, a standardized movie where it's like, arc hota hai, bit of jokes.
It's a formula film.
Formula film, exactly. And that has happened in the industry nowadays. And it is a bit sad because I look at all the films now and they've all taken up, and all the blockbusters as well, they all have a similar formula. Which is why when you watch movies like Everything Everywhere All at Once, it feels like a breath of fresh air.
Because it's so different.
Yeah, the A24 movies, they don't follow that formula. There's always something in there where you're like, oh crap, this is so good. This is why films like Dune are doing so well. This is why films like Killers of the Flower Moon are doing so well. Oppenheimer. You have these filmmakers that refuse to follow the formula, that refuse to not take risks. And they don't pay off sometimes. Like Martin Scorsese's The Irishman, people didn't like it. They're like, it's too boring. But that didn't stop him from making, Killers of the Flower Moon, which is a long movie. It is not a short movie.
It's a bit too long, to be honest. But it's pretty
honestly,
good.
But there are scenes in that movie which will stick with you longer than a scene from like Quantumania will stick with you, right? There are moments and there are nuances which I feel like are lost now in movies nowadays because of the fact that executives, and I will always blame the executives for this, they don't let their teams take risks.
And of the superhero movies that have been made in the past, what's your favorite one?
Like in the past, like how many years?
Ever.
Oof.
But like, I mean,
loaded
like
question.
motion pictures. So not like, I'll give you a little bit of a breather.
Okay, so from Marvel, if I have to choose my favorite Marvel movie, it would be Captain America. The First Avenger.
The First Avenger. Okay.
Not even and I know The Winter Soldier is a superior movie. It is. It is no doubt one of the best movies. But The First Avenger, I will always go and rewatch. I will always like rewatch with the same vigor. Because there's this amazing character called Peggy Carter, who I absolutely love. I love her to death. And I just love her relationship with Captain America. I think the relationship between Peggy and Steve is just one of the best, like on chemistry, like they just shine and they're just the heart of that movie. And I love it. And I cried like a baby at the end of it. And I cried in the cinema, by the way, at the end of Endgame when he finally reunites with Peggy. I was like, yes! I'm just sobbing, like, yes! And my husband's like, why am I married to this lady? Why do I bring her out in public? DC mein, my favorite DC movie is Batman Begins.
Begins,
yes.
The one with Liam Neeson? Interesting. Why?
Yes, because holy crap, man. Scarecrow, awal to. Best. I mean, I know Joker, Heath Ledger, amazing. Dark Knight, bahut fit hai. But the psychological aspect of Begins, just showing, that hero's journey, showing the psychological burden that Bruce Wayne has to bear. Oh, it's like the perfect origin film. Honestly, I love it. I love it to death.
Achha, I'm going to sort of sidetrack from the films. I was wondering, you just mentioned your husband a few times. What does your husband do? Is he also in this space? Or?
No, he's a pilot.
Okay.
Yes, he's a pilot, and he is a drummer in a band as well.
He's a drummer in a band.
He used
Which
to work
band?
with me back in the day. Resurrection. It's this very, very old school metal group, and their rock band back in the day. They're still active. They're still doing their thing. Go follow their page, guys.
And you said that he worked with you back in the day. Where?
We worked at this company called Optera. So he used to write with me. We were the writing duo of the team.
What does Optera do?
Why do you have to ask me that question?
Why? Is that, I don't understand.
It is a dark stain on my past, Shayan. Okay. So Optera was this transmedia company. So we did a lot of comic books and a lot of like video games and stuff there. So Shersha and I were the writing duo of that very like intimate creative team. Basically, it was a bunch of artists and UX designers, and we were the writing team.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a very professional answer. I don't know why, but let's stick with it. You also worked on Burka Avenger.
I did. I loved Burka Avenger.
Okay.
I mean, I that was one of the. I would say even more than Ms.Marvel, that is the highlight of my career that I choose to stick with, because she was made in Pakistan. She has had such a global impact in the world. Kids all over the world have seen her. I've seen her translated into so many different languages, and even now I remember she was still on TV. She was on one of the local channels, and I made my son watch. I'm like, Mama did that. Mama did that. And
did he like it?
He did. He danced to the theme song. I was very happy.
And how early on were you involved in the process? Like Haroon comes up. Did Haroon come up with the idea? Where did it start?
So I came in a bit later on.
Okay.
I came in, I think it was the tail end of season 1. Yeah, it was the tail end of season 1. So basically a lot of because you must know this by now, the Pakistani media industry is very small. Everybody knows everybody. You can't step 2 feet and go into the exactly. So the core team of Burka Avenger actually worked on a project where I was involved before. It was my first gig, my first ever professional
What
gig.
was that project?
It was called The Apartment Complex. It was a animated TV series in the vein of like South Park and stuff like that. So like for more adult thing. I was 15 years old. Yes, I didn't have my ID card then. I was 15 years old, and I got hired to as the writer for that gig. The company was called Numerical Studios, and it had the creatives were like people like Har Sajaz, Asfar Jaffrey, Ahmed Ali. These people who are now big time directors and stuff. They've worked on amazing projects. So that was where we all took our start, basically, in Numerical Studios. That's where we all started from. And I will always be thankful to Numair Boss for giving me that shot, this girl with like 0 CV to show. I was 15, I didn't even have an ID card, so.
It is crazy.
It is crazy. And he saw my talent, and he's like, okay, let's give her a shot. So long story short, the team at Burka Avenger, because they were a part of Numericals beforehand, they knew that I was still writing. They're like, hey, why don't we bring her on? Haroon needs another writer in-house, so let's get her to kind of come and help polish the scripts and stuff. So
and at the time, did you guys have an idea of how big Burka Avenger would eventually become?
yes,
The awards it would win and all that?
Not the awards, no. I knew it was something special. I didn't know we would get the Peabody and the Emmy. Not at all. And I think... Yeah, I had already joined. I joined, and it was like the tail end of season 1, and the awards were pouring in and stuff, and I was like, holy crap, I am a part of something huge. It is phenomenal. And just that team was so full of energy, so full of commitment and love for that product. It's some of my fondest memories working. We had this little, in the studio, we had this terrace in the office, and my office was on the terrace. It was like a mumpty, and I would work there, and the sun would be pouring in. And it was like the nicest place to work, like creatively. I was It was me and a few others who weren't the writers. They were like producers and stuff. But that was the most creative space, and I loved working there. I loved going to Harun's office because he had an open door policy. I loved just walking in and we're like, Harun, I have an idea. Let's talk about this idea. And he'd be like, oh, I have an idea too, Khaya. Let's talk about this idea. And again, it is a bit crazy for me because I grew up listening to Harun and I thought he was going to be like this pompous idiot, but he wasn't. He was the most nicest, charming, down-to-earth man I've ever met. He, respected me even though I was so much more younger than him. He respected my opinion so much. He allowed me to be the best possible writer I could, be without kind of pushing me down and having his ideas come forward more. And I really, I have nothing but nice things to say about that office, honestly.
And what happened to Burka Avengers? Is it still going on, sort of fizzled away a bit, right?
No, I feel like Harun will never let that project die, and I think he shouldn't, honestly. It's something that's it will always be a timeless thing. I think...
Why aren't there more seasons being produced or...
I feel like they're going towards something else, if I'm not wrong. I can't speak for him, but I don't think this is the last you've seen of Burka Avenger, and, I'm 100% sure that Harun will not let it be the last of Burka Avenger.
And if they ask you to come back and write on it?
Of course, 100%. I'll write for free, man. I'd write that show and whatever it is, I'd write it for free. Yeah, 100%.
Fair enough. So you mentioned right before the podcast started that you were currently working, we talked about the game designing stuff, on a game. Well, you can't tell us about what you're currently working on, but the game you worked on before this was related to Lord of the Rings. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So I'm working at Free Range Games right now. It is a company in San Francisco.
Okay.
And it's a video game development company. They're working on a bunch of projects. When I was brought in, so I was brought in for a different project, which I cannot talk about. But as I was brought in, they were kind of wrapping up Lord of the Rings. So I was able to kind of go in and be like, hey, hi guys, hi writing team. Can I see what you guys are working on? And they, one of the writers there, she's one of my bestest friends now. Her name is Farah. So Farah was like, yes, hello, fellow friend and fangirl of Lord of the Rings. Let's, let me show you what I'm working on. So they were working on some of the teaser, the trailers and stuff like that, the marketing material, because the project had all but wrapped up. They were just in the launch phase, like getting ready for launch, making sure that everything was tight, and they needed like an editing eye, so I kind of went in and helped edit them, and it was such a nice gesture by Free Range that even like even at the tail end of the project, I'm still featured in the credits because of just that little sprinkling of work that I did. So I'm very happy about that I have my name in the credits on a Lord of the Rings game. It is like, yay, check mark.
And when you work on these things, how different is it, or how much more do you enjoy? Like, so with Burka Avengers, you're writing scripts. Game designing is a little different, and then obviously this is more like promotional material, if anything. Which one of these things do you enjoy the most?
I love writing. I love plotting out stuff. I love the process of like, figuring out the story, going from point A to point B. How do we go from point A to point B? That is where I feel like, because it's the most challenging part, right? You have to come up with a story, then you have to poke holes in the story. Like, okay, this doesn't make sense. How do we make it make sense? It's like, you have the puzzle pieces, but bringing them together, making a holistic puzzle. It is the biggest challenge creatively, and it is where I have the most fun.
Yeah. Chalo, I'm not going to take up too much more of your time, apparently. Nap time for the baby
time for the baby.
Okay, last question, then I'll let you go. You must have thought of an original... So, like Burka Avenger, you must have got a concept in your mind for something that you want to create, whether that's in the superhero or science fiction space.
That's such a tricky question because, yes, if you had asked me 5 years ago, then yes, I had so many ideas. I was like, oh, we should do this, we should do that. Oh, this hasn't been done yet.
Yeah.
But now, because as I've grown older personally and professionally, I feel like my brain has kind of like restricted itself from thinking in that way. Because it's like, now it's more regimented because, again, my life is very regimented. I wake up, housework, office work, baby work, gym. I have no time to myself. I have no time to game. I love gaming. I haven't gamed in ages. I don't have time to read anymore. I don't have time. I have like 5-10 minutes to myself where I'm like, okay, let's make that Lego that I was thinking about making like ages ago. That kind of stuff where, time is a luxury now as I grow older and responsibilities become more. And unfortunately, because of that, those ideas can't bloom.
They can't fluster.
Maybe when I retire, then that's when I'll work on my memoir and my book and be like, oh yeah, these are the ideas I had. Let's get it creative. Let's assemble the Avengers. But now, at the moment, no. I don't think I can allow myself to be that creative because I have to keep thinking about the projects that I'm working on right now. That's where that little space has to go.
Makes sense. And I can imagine, I don't think you'd want to work in Pakistan again now that you're working on such interesting stuff, right?
Yeah, see, that's the thing, right? When you work in a global market, when you're working for, and I've worked for American companies, I worked for European companies, I've worked for UK, British companies, they all let you breathe. They let you breathe, they trust you. And I feel like, and that's why I still think about Burka Avenger and Unicorn Black so fondly, is because they trusted me, right? And I feel like over here, because the market is so volatile, that there's not a lot of trust from the upper management into the lower level employees. It
doesn't trickle down.
It doesn't trickle down, exactly. And now that I am in a position, a senior level position, I can now let my the juniors and the mid-level employees, I let them breathe. I'm like, yeah, I will afford that care and trust into the product and stuff like that. But that's not here. That is not the thing that we have here. That's not the way of life that we have here. And it is unfortunate because I feel like if we do allow our employees to breathe a bit, we can come up with some really, really cool products. But again, our market space is so volatile. Our government is so volatile that one day you're up, the next minute everything's banned, and you're like, oh, what is happening? This investor's pulling out, that investor's pulling out. So, that is what it is.
Yeah.
And yeah, I do prefer that freedom, that trust, that, that two-way, the doors open both ways kind of system. That's where I thrive. And that is something I found abroad more than I have found here, unfortunately.
It's a sad reality, but it is what it is. Chalo, thank you so much for being on the podcast. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed our content, please do subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you for the next podcast.